X out of that control panel thing on it. She's got control of that. And you can actually make this bigger if you
Is there a zoom function?
right here. I think this button makes it go bigger. So. It also shows off the hair on my arms.
Very nice.
Okay. Brian, please let's listen to the rest of. Can you kind of give us a synopsis
Yes.
of what we've seen so far?
All right, so quick recap of the story thus far. There's this guy named Ron, and he's pretty poor, and he's really lonely and stifled in his tiny room with his stuff. And sometimes he thinks about not very nice things. He thought about pulling someone's hair because they were not very nice and they might have money in their hair. Then a variety of factors, like he thinks about it for a while, certain things threaten to change his mind, but ultimately he ends up doing it. He runs and he stashes the jewels. He ends up feeling really sick. His friend Mike comes in and cares for him and tends to him, and Mike just brought up the fact that apparently this girl and her sister's hair got pulled. And so now they're having a conversation about that. And just a brief reminder of one of the other characters who we haven't talked about in a while, Mo. Mo really likes apple juice, and earlier Ron brought him back to his wife and kids and gave them some money because they're also poor. Are there any questions before we begin? Excellent. Mike asks Ron if he knew Yona. Ron says yes. Mike says that Ron should talk to Perry. Perry is the man in charge of figuring out who pulled the sister's hair. Ron doesn't want to talk to Perry, but he thinks he probably should, or Mike might think that Ron did it. Ron goes to talk to Perry. That's Perry. Perry acts very friendly, but Ron thinks that Perry is trying to trick him. Perry says he doesn't think Ron pulled the girl's hair, but Ron isn't so sure. Talking to Perry makes Ron feel queasy. Ron goes home. His mother and sister are waiting there for him. They came to the city to live with Landon, but now they don't want to, because Landon said mean things about Ron that they didn't think were true. Ron feels sick again. He says some not very nice things to his mother and sister. These things make them think that Landon might not have been totally wrong with what he said. But they still love Ron. Ron is family. The next day, Ron goes to the party Mo's family is throwing for him. Mo wakes fantastically, though people somehow aren't having much fun. There's a lot of food, but not a lot of happy people. Ron mostly talks to Mo's daughter, Sophie. She is just so kind and trusting. After the party, Ron talks to Sophie alone. He tells her that he was the one who pulled the hair of Yona and her sister. Sophie is surprised and sad, but she does not judge him. She feels bad for him, because she can tell how guilty he feels. Sophie tells Ron that he has to tell Perry that he pulled Yona's hair. She says it's the only way Ron can stop feeling so sick and angry. Ron thinks Sophie is probably right, but he feels nervous about telling Perry. He still doesn't want to get in trouble. Uh-oh. Landon was listening to Ron's talk with Sophie. Now Landon knows Ron pulled the hair of Yona and her sister. Landon tells Ron that he knows what happened. Ron is very nervous, but Landon says he's not going to tell anyone. He says that Ron should tell someone, though, or else he might go crazy. Perry comes to talk to Ron. Perry says he thinks he knows what happened. He knows that Ron wanted to prove that he was like Napoleon. He knows that Ron is very poor, and he knows that Yona was rich, and also not very nice. Perry says that if Ron says he did it, Ron will have a short timeout. If Ron doesn't confess and Perry proves that Ron did it, Ron will have a long timeout. Or someone might even pull his hair right back, and that would hurt. Ron knows the right thing to do.
He tells Sophie that he's going to tell Perry that he did it, and Perry will make Ron have a short timeout. Sophie is sad that Ron has to have a timeout, but she's happy that he's finally going to tell someone what he did. Now he won't feel sick and angry anymore, because he won't feel quite as guilty. Kids, when you do something wrong, it can make you feel very bad. It can even make you do more not very nice things. Ron thought that he could pull someone's hair without feeling bad, but he was wrong. Ron tells Perry what he did wrong, and Perry makes Ron have a short timeout. Ron's sad that he got in trouble, but here's the thing. Telling the truth and getting in trouble is better than not telling the truth and feeling guilty. And Ron's not very likely to pull another person's hair again. The end.
Don't pull people's hair.
Right, that is
Right.
definitely the moral.
Yeah.
Yes?
Can I pull your hair?
Okay, question.